Hello and welcome to a new production that I'm putting together now, which is going to be a review of some of the main races that might have happened. So this might not be a weekly occurrence, it might be every couple of weeks or once a month. We'll see how it goes. We're going to go through a few things that have happened during the week race-wise. We'll go through a few things that have come around like topics. Get quite a few messages that come in, especially this time of year, regarding the punting. So anything that's been asked multiple times I'll pull up in here, and then hopefully it will save a few of you for the following week. This week in the first episode, I suppose we'll call it, is something for the week to talk about. The 5-day festival, I really didn't want to talk about it, but I'm getting quite a few messages about it. We'll touch on that later. I'm also going to talk about Nicky Henderson and the Altior situation, the bookmaker sponsorship, the entry of the races, the information, the way it's passed out, all those sorts of things. We'll cover that off as well after we've seen the weekend's racing. And then Sky Bet have gone non-run and no bet, so that'll be something else that we'll be covering. I'm essentially going to be telling you what I think. Lots of you will probably already be able to get a good assumption of that. You know, we're all quite like-minded on this page, which is good. We're also going to look at some of the races that have happened from the previous weekend or the previous week, anything that's mainly of note. So for this weekend, we're going to look at 5 races. We're going to look at the 2 races at Warwick. There was a couple of Grade 2s there, and then there was the Silvianco Conti chase at Cheltenham. Watch that, and then 2 from Fairyhouse we'll also have a look at as well. So that's going to pop up on the screen now, those races. Here we had Hold the Note, was a horse that I put up in the write-up that, although his handicap mark would suggest that a lot to find in here, you know, it wasn't really probably the case. He did appear to be outstayed at the end of this race. Now the winner, to be fair to him, he was entitled to go and run quite well in there, but was fairly keen in the race, so that was a really decent performance from him as well. But Hold the Note was probably the one to take out of it. A lot of people would be thinking Close Brothers now. I suspect, given the fact that he ran in that particular race at Kempton, people would probably been already thinking about that anyway. So yeah, that's the sort of steer with him. Wouldn't say it's a classy race, but yeah, there we are. Onto the second race, Harry Senior there, we could see chucking Robbie Power off when he went for a rail prelim, so he was withdrawn from the race. This is the Leamington Novices Hurdle. Has produced festival winners before. It's a pretty decent trial, to be honest. You can see these front 4 are pulled well clear. Mossy Fen, the eventual winners in third jump in this last tier. They all look like they're quite tired horses, to be honest. Sham Blue, I don't know, I feel like this horse is the 2.5 miler of the race, although he got beat here. Mossy Fen does look like it stays on a little bit further, but you know, whether you can excuse his Cheltenham run the time before is difficult to say in terms of festival prospects. Obviously the one in between has run a monster race there as well, was entitled to. I just don't think that's going to be a real great race going forward. It was a nice enough performance from the winner, to be fair, considering he stuck his head down and sort of got on with it. Sham Blue would be one I'll be keeping an eye on going forward too. Here we are at Ascot now, seeing Frodon take on Top Notch. The interesting thing with this is in the write-up, it's difficult for me to get everything across. There's only so many things we can say in there, but Keeper Hill's a horse I quite like. He went and won at Haydock the weekend that he might have run against Surname and Altior. He was taken out of that particular clash. I just think this was a good performance from Frodon. He was entitled to be able to do this. He ran in a handicap at the start of the season where there was fences omitted. He was giving those away, so that was happy enough to excuse it for him, for me. After that, he goes and runs in the Betfair Chase. The 3 miles at Haydock probably isn't going to suit him. We would think initially Haydock probably wouldn't suit him, but he obviously won the Cotswold Chase at Cheltenham. Trip wouldn't have been an excuse for me there, but they tried to hold him up instead of going on with him. Tactics played a vital change here when he did get the result in, and he was 5-2 when I put the write-ups up, so you know, I fancied him. I thought the price was wrong, and it was one of them that you just look at and think he's a bit of value. You can excuse some of the other performances in there. So we're looking at Wolf Prince here, running it in Ireland. It was really a form line that goes in for Aspire Tower. Now, the trainers come out since and just said that they're going to be thinking Fred Winter. They're just essentially saying that they ain't going to be able to get near Aspire Tower. This sort of, you know, the finish, the way the horses come next to him and the way that he's rallied on is a nice effort. Whether it really franks the Aspire Tower form and makes him look any better, I'm not 100% sure, but the pair are nice types. Maybe Wolf Prince has got a little bit more up his sleeve if they are thinking the handicap route anyway. And that's the interesting thing with the juveniles. We'll see lots of them obviously triumph bound, but you'll get a few ones that do get beat that could be handicap plots for later on. Now we're looking at the beginners chase here. We've got Animix in front and Void de Tiep in second for Paul Townend. Now Animix did all the work in front. We all know that Animix was our hype horse, favourite for the Supreme for a couple of seasons on the spin. didn't really come to fruition over hurdles. It was nice to see this sort of performance. You can see there's likes of Valdier further back. I mean, they're well clear of the remainder of the field. The winning margin probably flatters him a bit because Paul Townend knows that he's won, whereas the jockey on Animix has carried on riding. That's why the margin's probably stretched a little bit. But, you know, it was a nice enough performance. You don't see him being a top-grade performer, despite the fact that he's obviously taken a liking to fences now. It's just interesting. It's nice to see. We all know that there was a lot of hype about it. It was nice to see him going and winning, and you know, you'd expect him to markedly step up for that effort, especially given the fact that Townend didn't sit on him. So be interested to see what they do with him next time. Looks a nice enough type. We're moving on to the Sunday action. It's the novice chase we've carefully selected in, and then the Moscow Flyer we'll take a look at. So this particular race is going to be a fairly short clip because Speakeasy did fall at the last. I'm just showing you the run up into the last because you can see that Carefully Selected had the race in the bag anyway, but the winning margin will obviously turn out to flatter him. You know, his jumping was okay. It's 2.5 mile. He's a 3 mile plus horse. I want to see him in the RSA, not the National Hunt Chase. 10 Up Novice Chase was the one that was touted before as his next one. That will put him as eligible for the National Hunt Chase, and that obviously was a grade 3, so it'd be a big step up to be RSA quality, but very nice performance. And we've got Andy Dufresne here in the Moscow Flyer. Now Captain Guinness in front, he was second favourite, wide margin winner despite Blackbow falling last time, and that's the reason he got that margin. But Andy Dufresne, I think, was a decent performance here. These two had to take it up a long way out. They were going so slow, they were crawling that Captain Guinness was pulling Rachel Blackmore's arms out. It just, the initial thoughts after the back of this was just the fact that Andy Dufresne off a stronger pace would be seriously interesting. The fact that he knuckled down and got the job done just shows that he is obviously a useful horse. We know that anyway. But yeah, anyone that jumped on the 25 to 1 for him for the Supreme when Kevin Blake put a column out, I wouldn't be disappointed. He's more likely to be going there than the Ballymore. But he's a nice horse. He's starting to look a tiny bit tripless. I did think maybe that he needed to step up in trip as opposed to come back, but what I saw there, I think maybe off a stronger pace. Tricky thing will be is if they go too fast, will he be taken out of his comfort zone to a point that he can't run? So pinch of salt with his performance there, but he's won at the end of the day, although it wasn't that glossy, and the early part of that race was wasted by them just going a crawl. So we're going to cover on those 3 talking points that I talked about. I'm also going to talk about a few horses that I've got my eye on for this week anyway. Everything will be in the write-ups. The non-runner no bet thing for Sky has come out, and lots of people get excited about non-runner no bet. There potentially can be some value in there. I like to play anti-post. I'm talking the summer of the season before the season's even started, and then the very early stages of the season. So when it comes non-runner no bet time, I don't massively like it because of the value side of it. I mean, I've gone through some of the races, not completely and utterly through it, but the likes of Altior was 4 to 1 beforehand. The night before he was 5 to 2 after. Tiger Roll was 7 to 4 for the cross country. He's 4 to 5 now. Now horses like that, obviously Tiger Roll's been said by Gordon Elliott he will make the festival, but you just don't know whether they will get there. The price differential though, you just think I'd rather wait to the day to back him if I'm going to back him 4 to 5, or I'd rather take the punt at 7 to 4 if I'm going to be backing him this far out. So the value goes a little bit. Those two that I've mentioned there were about 13 to 1 the double beforehand. They're about 5 to 1 the double now with Sky Bet. So perks that you can get some money back, but you know, the point of anti-post punting in the main is that you're getting a bigger price because there's a bigger risk attached to it. Now, one that has picked up, been picked up from there, a few people with you that I speak to quite regularly. It's good to have a staple handful of friends that you speak to about racing because you can bounce ideas off each other. It's hard to keep on top of all of it. But Column of Fire for Gordon Elliott runs tomorrow. He fell the last day, but he looked like he was probably going to win. He wants to get a win under his belt. He's going in the 145 at Punchestown on Monday. It's the race that Dallas Depicton won last year. He went off 7 to 2 for the Martin Pipe, just touched off. Column of Fire we thought was a Martin Pipe horse a little while ago, me and my mate that we've been talking about. This would look like even more such of a case. He's 33 to 1 biggest price anti-post, but he is 20 to 1 non-runner no bet with Sky. So you've got the option to play in any race market. You've got the option to take the bigger price with the Paddy Power or Betfair 33 for the risk attached, or you can take the 20 to 1 Martin Pipe non-runner no bet. I would be tempted with that. As I say, Dallas Depicton won this particular race. Dallas Depicton went off at 7 to 2 there. That's not the only reason I'm tying that particular race in, but I'm just saying 7 to 2 favourite for a Martin Pipe. It's a 20 to 1 potentially risk-free-ish bet on Column of Fire. Given obviously if he does turn up and he's still a 20 to 1 poke, you're about the same. But yeah, that would be the only one that would lures me in, and I'd be interested to see him run tomorrow, Monday, or whenever you're watching this. There's Caribbean Boy for Munir and Suede. Nicky Henderson, he's only a 6-year-old, but he's got plenty of experience over in France. They stick him straight into a beginner's chase on Tuesday at Doncaster, so it'll be really interesting to see what he can do. We've got another Nicky Henderson horse out this week, Shishkin. He's entered up at Newbury. He's also entered up at Doncaster on that Tuesday with Caribbean Boys, so he might end up going there. The Doncaster entry's over 2 mile 5, the Newbury entry's back at 2 miles. He obviously fell so early the last day, it was impossible to be able to judge his performance, but he looked a serious horse in his bumpers last year. We have Litigate, ended up in a couple of bumpers this week. Now, I did put him up when he won at 16-1. That was good ground. I think that is the key to this particular horse, but it's nice that he's staying bumper in. I think a few from that bumper have come out and won since, so he wants good ground. He's a half-sister, or he's a half-brother to Indefatigable, another one that wants that better ground. So interested to see what they do with him, and I like the fact they're keeping him bumper in. And then there's a horse that was really impressive in a bumper, Kid Commando for Anthony Honeyball. He's had 2 bumper runs since. Favourite at Ascot when he got beat, running the listed hurdle where Israel Champ carried the penalty and won there. He's now going over obstacles by the looks of it. He's entered up in a maiden hurdle, a couple of maiden hurdles, Wednesday and Thursday. They're 2 milers. He actually got an entry at Chepstow on Friday over 3 miles. So he's an ex-winning pointer. He obviously won his bumper in good fashion. He's already a 6-year-old, so he'll be a 7-year-old for next season. I'm guessing they just want to get some hurdle runs under his belt so they can go chasing with him next term. But he'll be seriously interested to see wherever he ends up. So they're the ones I'm looking at towards this week. Now, moving on to the next part that we were looking at for sort of my thoughts for the particular week, just going through some of the newsy stuff, will be Nicky Henderson and what's been going on with declarations, out here, all that sort of stuff. So it's one of them that the sponsorship of bookmakers for trainers, I mean, I've got nothing against it, to be honest. I understand that they might give them a nod before they give someone else the nod, all that sort of stuff, but they could do it anyway. If they're not sponsored by a bookmaker, they could give someone else a nod. It puts me off slightly with people's attitude when they say that it's a problem. It's happening, just deal with it. That'll be very much the same sort of stance as I'm saying when it comes to the 5-day festival, which we'll touch on in a moment. But with Nicky Henderson in this instance, the frustrating thing was that he was potentially going to run him this weekend. He made the comment that I might not run him. Didn't want to announce anything publicly until he'd let the owners know, which if I was paying the bills, I think's fair. And then the BHA calling him up on it, going and visit him, and then almost feeling like he couldn't run the race. I mean, it's just tricky. It's just not very nice the way that it gets dealt with. But the fact is, anti-post betting, the short-term anti-post betting specifically, is suicide. I've said it before. I have put a couple up short-term, but it's really, really dangerous punting because you're betting miles out. A trainer can make multiple comments over a 6-month period, and you don't really have a go at them for saying, oh, it's going to run in the Ryanair, does something different through the season, and it goes champion chase. A trainer saying something here on one day to the next day, he's trying to be nice and tell the public some information. People are asking for things from trainers all the time, but at the end of the day, he's given some information out there, almost maybe he's forced or whatever, because he's insisted that he might not run, but it wasn't definite. It's just because of those betting moves, and that's where it sticks with me a little bit, that it's just a bit of a nuisance. But I think in the long run, it's actually done Altior a favour. I've always seen him as the champion chase horse. The 2.5 mile there going against Froden or whatever, I think he would have won that race, but what's the point? Just get him back in the game spirit. That's where he wants to go. Let him go run for the champion chase. That's where it needs to be. I just think going forward, we've said it before, you can take certain trainers' comments with a pinch of salt. There's certain trainers you can read into things that they're saying. Ultimately, Nicky Henderson's responsible for training the horses. Any information that he passes on obviously should go through the proper channels. He should be notifying and scratching the horse for the BHA if it's not going to run. But it's too much of an issue that's been talked about, and it frustrates me as well because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If they don't tell us about horses, what's going on, we say, why aren't you providing an update? They do give us information and then they change their mind, then we have a go at them for that. Everyone's allowed to. It is just what it is. You need to just be strong enough to have your own opinion on something and judge it from there. I get the betting side of it, the insider stuff that's come out from the yards, but if the bookies want a price of a week, like during the week for a race, well then it's them that's doing it, isn't it? It's no one against average Joe punter just because you missed out because you didn't find out Top Notch was going. The irony of all of it is the Top Notch got beat anyway, so everyone's whinging about that, and it was irrelevant. But never mind, too much on that. 5-day festival, just quickly cover that because it wasn't something I wanted to talk about. It was a flying comment from the the new guy at Cheltenham, almost pressured into the fact that they might be there. Where you've got to look at it is, I appreciate that people are talking about the diluting of quality, the number of races, all of those sort of things, but we're looking at losing a race to get the Mayor's Novice Chase in at this point now. There are some races at the festival that might have less appeal than others, but they're all there for a particular reason. The least favourite race of mine is the Fox Hunters, and that's never going anywhere. It's a great opportunity for the amateur riders in there, and that's what it's really about. That every race doesn't have to be an absolute superstar Grade 1 fantasy race. It just needs to be top quality racing, and that's what the Cheltenham Festival is at the moment, over 4 days. 5th day, the funny thing is, the assumption as well that's been made with adding a 5th day, everyone just thinks it can be added on to the end. Everyone's talking about, oh, it's great for Saturday race goers, all that sort of stuff. Who's to say that they might not move it a day forward and it is a Monday to Friday jobby? Now, I work a job, I have to take holiday to do it, but you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If you want to go, you'll go. If you don't want to go, you don't go. If you want to whinge about the quality of racing and then there's too many options for places for people to go, all those sort of things, then you know, it's an organic thing. If they add more races in there and people don't take up the entries, then it just won't happen. I get the fact that it takes away the sort of highlight of some other race courses, which is something I'm not so keen on, but ultimately we can't do anything about it. It is what it is, much as it's a frustrating saying to say, you just have to just go along with it. I wouldn't be opposed to whatever they do with it. I feel like the people that are in power to make these decisions make them for the right reasons. If we've got a few more races to get stuck into, then happy days. I mean, I mainly tend to just look at the graded races anyway, so it's half of the races at the festival as just something I'll just look at as an average Joe a couple of weeks before in terms of handicaps, things like that. If they want to add a few more races in there, then I'm all for it. If they want to keep it as 4 days, then happy days. The biggest problem with the festival in total is just the extortionate racket that hotels and people around the area make out of it. We used to book accommodation when we first started going just over a decade ago, and we could rent a house in the town for £1,000 a week, sleep 5 people, happy days. You're lucky if you can get a hotel room now for sort of 250 or 200 quid a night if you're staying in the town centre. That'll sleep 2 of you. You know, it's an expensive old week now. That's the sort of things that would be obviously a negative. If it rolls onto a Saturday, then you know the cost might be even higher for that, but it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. If you want to go, you'll go. If you don't want to go, then you won't go. So that pretty much wraps up this first episode. Obviously there'll be bits and pieces that I can improve, tweak, so all your feedback and any sort of comments are greatly appreciated as always. We'll see how this one goes, and then I'll look to try and get a few more of these out as time goes on. Cheers.